and want to thank everyone for joining us, for all of you for joining us today. I'm going to actually um, want to thank our sponsor, Trapac, who is here in a bit in numbers, because I know Andrea and Alex are both with us. And just thank everyone. And I think my only responsibility here is to turn it over to Eric Neandros, Coalition for Clean Air's um, vice chair of the board of directors and longtime board member and key partner in that consulting group of Gladstein Neandros and Associates. So Eric, it's all yours.
Well, thanks, Joe. It's great to be here. As you mentioned, I'm a proud CCA board member. I have been so for a long time. I don't frankly remember the exact date, but I can tell you that it was 2000 and before there was a one. So it's a long time. 2008, 2009, maybe. But it's great to be on the CCA board. We've got such an amazing group of individuals and just experts across California. Different expertise in air quality issues and technical issues and all kinds of other areas. Happy to have Tom Swenson join us, who's also on the board from Cummins. Tom is one of the brightest guys out there in the market that understands these issues. So nice to have you with us. And we've got an amazing panel here today. It's as I'm sure most of you know, it's a tough subject. Particularly here in California, is how do we deal with the environmental consequences of our freight system and the ports, and try to balance that with the great economic opportunity that the system provides us here in California. And so, I'm glad I'm just doing the intro and not moderating, because Joe's got really the tough job here. But Joe is well seasoned in his 20 years of working on these issues as an advocate and as a regulator, and really a key player in all these issues. So you're in good hands to have Joe moderate the discussion. We've got two awesome panelists here that you'll hear from here in a minute, both TTSI and Trapac, two of the leading companies in the space within which they operate in the LA Long Beach ports. As you'll hear from them, they've figured out how to balance that environmental and economic sustainability. And I probably should say the economic sustainability together with the environmental sustainability. And I think it's important that we always keep it in that order, because if you're not economically sustainable, there's nothing left to be environmentally sustainable with. Although I guess you'd be zero emissions at that point, but not in a good way. So super excited to get into the conversation here and hear what everyone has to say. Karen asked me to do a few housekeeping notices here. One, if we could just make sure everyone stays on mute, that would be great. Limit the background noise and other stuff that's going on wherever you may be, probably your house is our guess. You do have the ability that you can communicate in the chat, so feel free to use that. I know that's always a popular place on these calls. If you put your questions in the chat, I think you have to probably direct it, Karen, keep me honest here, to the CCA Zoom, perhaps.
Actually directed to Joe Lu.
Okay, put Joe on double did. You got to monitor questions too, Joe. So direct those to Joe. Just a quick note, this conversation is being recorded, so everyone should be on their best behavior. Not to mention Mark is on, so he's always going to keep everyone on their best behavior, we know. And last but certainly not least, thanks to Trapac for supporting today's webinar. Without the support that you guys are providing, Coalition for Clean Air just couldn't do what it does every day in its fight to try to help bring clean air to all of California. So thanks to Trapac for that. Okay, so let's get on with the show. Really excited, as I mentioned, to have TTSI and Trapac with us here today. Representing Trapac is Alex Milley. He's the Assistant Vice President for Health, Safety, Security, and the Environment. I'm not going to steal Alex's thunder, but I can tell you they've got some really, really cool things going on at Trapac around clean air technologies and efficiency. So I'll let Alex get into the details there. And then Tony Williamson with TTSI. Again, I'm not going to say too much about what TTSI is doing, except to say they're doing it all. They are testing and trying and really, really leading in the clean air technology efforts around port trucking. So super excited to have two great companies and two great representatives with us here today. So with that, Joe, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Eric. I think we have a short slide deck that we're going to, video we're going to show real quick. Thanks, Thunder.
When the Coalition for Clean Air was founded in 1971, Californians breathed some of the smoggiest air in the world. So we got to work. We led the charge for California's smog check program for passenger vehicles, a program that reduces 100 tons of automobile pollution every day. We cleaned up school buses so that kids don't get sick. We got the toxic chemical perc out of dry cleaning. And in 2019, we followed up with SB 210, a similar smog check program for heavy-duty freight, which will result in emissions reductions equivalent to taking hundreds of thousands of trucks off California roads. But we're not resting on our laurels. With your help, we're fighting to eliminate diesel use in California, to bring millions of Californians together to clear the air each California Clean Air Day, to decarbonize our economy and meet our climate goals, and to deliver healthy air to all Californians in the next decade.
We need 10 bottles of wine, honey. That's
We
really
have literally-
sad.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that, Thunder. I think got these great slides about Trapac and what they've been doing. All right, thank you, everyone. So we're gonna get right into our panel. And once we're done with the panel, everyone's gonna have an opportunity to ask some questions. So yeah, put those questions in the chat and we will try to get to the ones that we can. And after that, we're gonna have a short conversation from CCA Policy Director Bill Mcgovern about our priorities for 2021 and beyond. And we'll wrap it up and get you on your way here before 3 o'clock. So let's see if I can get back to the right view I want to have here. We've got Alex and Tony here. Let me just start it off by asking you guys a question. I want to know whether there have been any recent developments or achievements that really give you hope that we can and will create a green supply chain. And I don't know who wants to go first, but I guess the containers come into Alex first and then they go to Tony. So let's go with Alex.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So first off, very excited to be here. We love being a partner with groups like this. So thank you so much for the invitation and for allowing us to be here. Yeah, there's a few things. I think, going from, taking your lead, Joe, on big scale to smaller scale, from the large scale, there's vessels now that are operating under, liquefied fuels, so liquefied natural gas, comparing that to maybe, let's say, some sort of bunker oil or fuel oils that, some ships still use from, using the dirtiest, least refined fuels to cross the ocean at full bore. Knowing that there's a liquefied natural gas that's viable that ships are using is very exciting, and I think that's a really good step. I think there's some other large pieces of equipment that are now becoming fully electrified, whether that's demos that you're seeing, even Tesla showing now a full-size UTR semi-truck scale doing laps around a test area is extremely exciting. To know that something could be the potential for zero emissions right at our fingertips This is what I think we've been excited for a while. And Trapac is in the midst of demoing a couple of UTRs that are those are utility tractor rigs. So those are the same tractors that are out on the road, except fully off-road, no not out on the road, no creature comforts, just for industrial use. And we're demoing some of those that are pure hydrogen fuel cells. So they're not producing power through an internal combustion engine, but actually going through a fuel cell and going directly to electricity. We think that's a very interesting and potentially very viable approach, especially knowing that there's the opportunity to get green hydrogen, not just hydrogen that comes off as a byproduct from refining. So I think those things are very exciting for what we're doing. And I'll let Tony jump into some of this stuff, but to give him a first prompt, the safety of trucker associations, TTSI, we've seen big improvements to trucker safety. And you imagine how much more efficient it is when people aren't getting into accidents, aren't getting hurt. That's got an angle on sustainability as well. So anyway, lots of exciting things, I think.
Thanks, Alex. Tony, what do you think? Oh, you're muted. You got to take yourself off mute. There we go.
Well, TTSI has been in the alternative fuel vehicle arena since 2008. We were the first early adopters of the 15-liter LNG trucks. And then from there, we went to a hydrogen fuel truck, ran that truck from 2011 to 2014. 2015, we started with the battery electrics. And as of December of 2020, TTSI had 16 different alternative fuel vehicles that we were demonstrating. Since then, some of the vehicles have went off the demonstration program, but we have other trucks that are, vehicles that will be coming in the next 3 to 6 months. So we'll be back up to 10 to 12 trucks that will be demoed. And those will be battery electric fuel cells and of course CNG hybrids. But the biggest significance that we have seen has been the involvement with the OEMs. Early on, it was the integrators that was taking the chassis, taking out the diesel engine and then putting their components in it. Some of the early issues that we had was the components not being married, meaning that you get a inverter from one company and you get the fuel cell from another company, and then the technology you're developing. So all the pieces didn't kind of, fit in. But the OEMs now are able to get involved, and they have a little bit more resources to put behind this research. And we have seen a big improvement, especially in battery technology. The first battery electric trucks that we employed was the, we were only able to get about 4 to 5 hours duty cycle per day. Now we're up to 7 to 8 hours duty cycles per day. And in the drayage, especially in Southern California, our duty cycles is 18 to 20 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, and then 8 to 10 hours Friday and Saturday. And then of course, lately we've been working on Sunday. So the duty cycles we see have been improving, and same thing for the fuel cells. Now with a little bit more research, the fuel cells are beginning to work.
Well, that's good news. That's really good news. I mean, I should state that been so impressed with TTSI and their willingness to do these demonstration projects, because it does take away from the core business of moving containers on trucks. But the company has been so willing to try every alternative fuel truck that's provided, whoever gets it to you, and it's just impressive that you're willing to lead on that issue. So thank you again to Tony, to you and Vic for doing all that. You kind of alluded to this, working on Sundays, and this is where my second question goes. I mean, for the past several months, we've had dozens of container ships and oil tankers that have been anchored outside the San Pedro Bay ports, just waiting and waiting to get to a terminal, up to 2 weeks or more at times. And I mean, a lot of the people on this in this webinar who are participating in it probably know more than I do about what's causing this problem. But I'd love to hear from the panelists first. What is causing this, and if you know about any of the air quality and climate implications, can you discuss those too? But first and foremost, what's causing it, and what do we got to do to get out of this situation?
Alex?
Yeah, that sounds pretty vessel related. So I'll jump into that first.
My understanding, it's not only vessels, but yeah, okay.
Yep. So, I think one of the things that maybe the general public understands, but maybe they don't, is there has been a massive import surge that has never before happened. It's described as all of the discretionary funds that people have for travel, for entertainment, for food, going out to restaurants and all of that have all gone to ordering things, whether they're Pelotons or cars or any other supplies that go into a shipment. That's what a huge component of the surge has been. The surges at most of these ports, they could probably handle, a 5 or 10% change to growth in a surge without too much of a hiccup. But we're seeing, at least 50%, and that's entirely what this is. So it's not some some other magical thing. There's a bunch of things being delivered, and there's the infrastructure has been the way it has been for quite a while. Now, there has been, I think the ports have been incredibly resilient. The workforce has been able to keep working and work with a tremendous jump in imports and effort and hours worked, even with all the COVID, even with everything, even with having some folks being ill. I think there's been a lot of people that can pat themselves on the back for having gotten done so much, especially during a crisis. But honestly, we've had there have been terminals that have been impacted by labor shortages, partly just because there's so much work and there just aren't enough gangs, there aren't enough workers to get in there for a specific call for a vessel. So it's taken, some of the vessels have been dwelling longer. And it's got all the implications that this group, I'm sure, is fathoming. When you've got vessels out offshore, they've got to have some power running, and they're absolutely burning some fuel to keep their generators going, to keep the vessels going. I think one of the things that we do have as a benefit, and I'll speak for Trapac, is we have every vessel that's on our berth, 100% of them are plugged into power. So you can imagine these gigantic vessels, many of them with refrigerated containers. They have a fairly significant power load in order to keep things running and to keep things going. As soon as they dock at Trapac, we've got them plugged in, and their engines are off, and they're not contributing to emissions in the LA basin. So, although there's been some delays, for a couple days rather than maybe a 2-day addition to however long a vessel would normally be berthed. That whole time, the emissions are pretty much nil for us. So that gives us a little bit of confidence in that. But honestly, it's a port issue, and if this surge isn't temporary, we're living in an interesting new normal. Maybe people are going to be spending more on products that get delivered through entities, big names that deliver straight to your door. Maybe this surge is going to have some legs and going to be here for a long time. There may be some thoughts that we need to have. Everybody from chambers of commerce to our representatives pushing for potential infrastructure improvement to help make sure this doesn't happen again. So anyway, there's a lot of thoughts there, but hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how we adapt if this really is the new normal in the long term. And Tony, I know that, I might have heard there are chassis issues and and other problems for truckers too. Warehouses are full. That's my understanding. And so how's it from your perspective?
Well, I think Alex addressed two key points. Was number one, the ports, the terminals themselves. If you look at the TEUs coming in, these ships are carrying more TEUs than they have in past years. And they're going to the same piece of land, which is the same size as previous year. So you can only put so many containers in one spot. That's hence maybe is some of the issue with the fleet docked outside the harbor. Also, Alex did say about COVID. COVID hit the ILW pretty hard. It also hit our drivers pretty hard. We have over 100 drivers, and we had 3 rounds of COVID where we were, down to just a certain number of drivers due to COVID. Now, with that said, when COVID did hit, and we mothballed our diesel trucks and ran our CNG trucks in order to keep our emissions down. And we did that. We operated in that mode since from March through August. And then we, since then, we have started moving our diesel trucks out of California and backfilling those with CNG. Right now, we only have 7 diesel trucks in our fleet. And by June or July, those trucks will be out of California.
And still a fleet of about 200 trucks, right?
Yes. Yes. So
that's a far larger clean fleet than anyone else that I know of. So something to brag about. That's fantastic, Tony. Thank you.
Well,
thank you for getting those diesel trucks out of California. I wish others would do the same. I'm glad you've shown it's feasible. And I'm hoping that your workers and the terminal workers, the dock workers are all getting vaccinated. I'm assuming that's starting to happen now.
Yes. Yes.
It's good. That's good. It's important. Okay. So where are we in all of this? What about on the other end of things? I asked about, what made you optimistic? And I also want to know about, what are the obstacles you encounter? So what have been some of the most difficult obstacles you've encountered while incorporating clean freight technologies and sustainable practices into your operations?
Let me go, Alex.
Sure. Sure. I'll gather my thoughts.
Okay. Our obstacles have been really availability and reliability of the equipment. We'll start with availability. Like I said, when alternative fuel trucks were, I'll say, operating in the port, there was only like 5 to 10, maybe 20, if it's that many, if you count the yard tractors. So the problem right there was availability. Everybody could not demo a yard tractor. Say a battery electric tractor. So you look at the availability, it wasn't feasible at the time. And then when you look at the reliability of the new technology, like I said before, the initial battery electric trucks, we was only getting 4 hours out of a duty cycle. Now we're up to 7. So there's been good development in that front. But if you look at the issue, if you're only getting 4 to 7 hours and you have an 8 to 10 hour duty cycle, and these trucks are coming in probably 3, 4, 6 times as a diesel truck, you have to start looking at the economics of operating these trucks.
Yeah. Alex, what are the obstacles at Trapac?
Yeah, so we're by and large automated, and one of the obstacles is obviously the cost. It's extremely expensive. It's efficient and both sustainability efficient and efficient with people's times and getting the right work and the right product at the right time. But I would note that's worth noting. I think that's a barrier to keep others from following suit, and that's the only barrier. Oftentimes is cost. So if we can have our minds together and think of options for grants and other partnerships that could help people get there, especially in the communities that we work, that's a potential. The other thing is the viability of these options. You hear a lot of folks in public talking about electrified over-the-road tractors and things like that. It would be great if those things were readily available, and they're just not. We're very proud of our efforts and focus towards sustainability. And for us, when we wanted to look into hydrogen, we are more or less having to build the thing ourselves. There's no off-the-shelf hydrogen fuel cell UTR for us to just go buy. So it's taking a ton of initiative on our part to do this demo, and we're hoping this demo benefits not only us but the whole industry, because we're hoping this demo actually functions the way we hope it will, and then becomes a viable option. But here we are in 2021, and you can't just order one. You have to build one. You have to partner with 6 or 8 different trades, and we're pretty proud of the folks that we're working with. But gosh, that would be so much nicer to just go to one firm and place an order and have something that is going to work. And to Tony's point, how many hours it's going to work, how much lifting it can do. We're in 2021. And that's not there yet.
Yeah, I think what you're both saying is there's basically a cost of getting out front of this, right? I mean, you're demoing things, you're figuring out what they can do and what they can't do. And it's not necessarily that they don't work. It's just that their capabilities are different from what you're used to and what's easiest. That's certainly an argument, I think, for incentive funding, that helping the leaders out for the what they're doing, the service they're providing, and demonstrating and developing these new technologies. Because if you just sit at the back and you wait for everybody else to do that, then you could come in and it's going to be more off the shelf, and it's going to be more developed and more reliable and all of that. After they've worked out all the kinks. And so I want to express our appreciation for you guys being willing to stick your neck out like that and willing to be the guinea pigs to some extent of testing these new equipment. We're getting some good questions in the chat. We're going to get to those in just a second, but I'd like to play a little bit. Well, just one more question, then we're going to go to overrated and underrated, and we're going to get we're going to poll our audience too. So get ready to click your screen, folks. The one question I had was about your customers. When it comes to greening the supply chain, what do your customers care about? You guys have different customers and some of the same customers, but also you have the shipping lines, right, Alex and Tony, you've got the beneficial cargo owners, the Targets and Walmarts and Amazons of the world. But what do they care about?
I can jump in first. So we know we've heard from our customers. We know we've heard from either prospective customers or customers we already have that sustainability is important to them, whether it's measured or whether it's just examples of things that are done right. We knew this was important to customers and to our future customers, but also to our current business and really our goals and core values. So we prepared and published our 2020 sustainability report this year. First year ever, first year done. We felt it was a really important first step to put a line in the sand. So it has expressed measurements in it. It has expressed goals. It tries to knit things together in a reasonable way that makes sense to shareholders, that makes sense to our customers, that makes sense to the community. It's publicly available, and I think we have been asked by folks, but we also want to put it out there and maybe by doing it, set as an example and have others do it as well. We've got peers. And we'd like them to play in the same game. So we're very proud of what we've done. One of our representatives, Andrea, is on the call. She spearheaded that, and it is beautiful. It's a very well put together document, and I encourage everybody to go take a look at it and give us feedback. But we're setting a line in the sand, and it's showing our core values and showing what we believe in. And, I think it gives us a reason to be putting in all this effort for things like, the hydrogen fuel cell demos and things like that. So it puts it into a whole.
And so when your customers raise the issue, you can send them the report.
Absolutely, and they know why. So it's not just done randomly; it's done it with a strategy.
Mm-hmm. Tony, what about you? What do your customers want?
Well, when the first Clean Air Action Plan was adopted, I think it was 2010. Our senior management got on planes and flew out to our beneficial cargo owners and sit down and talk to them and let them know what the Clean Air Action Program is. And they informed them that, you know, TTSI, our ultimate goal is to be a zero emission fleet. And they've said that we have started the strategy to move in that direction. Since then, now we have customers and potential customers calling about what are our capabilities for zero emission or near zero emission trucks. And Alex said they have started putting the reports together. We started about 2.5 years ago of starting measuring that, taking out a diesel truck, what did that do to the environment? And now when we do our bids and our RFPs, we're able to give our customers that information, and they are embracing that. They want their supply chain green, and we're able to provide them an answer for their solution.
That's interesting. I mean, both of your answers had to do with data and metrics, a lot more than I expected. So it's good to know. That's important, because that means that when we're doing our policy advocacy, or we're thinking about what these beneficial cargo owners and really want to see, how important it is to track what we're doing and measure what we're doing. I hadn't really appreciated that as much. So thanks for those answers. Now we're gonna play the overrated and underrated. There's 5 different items here. Just want, a quick little explanation of what do you think it's overrated or underrated, and perhaps a little bit of why. So let's go first with Alex. Overrated or underrated, setting ambitious climate and air quality goals?
I think it's underrated. I think if you don't set goals, how can you manage what you don't measure?
Okay. What about you, Tony?
I agree. It's underrated. You got to set the goals so you can go after those.
All right. How about overrated or underrated, incentive funding to drive clean freight technology adoption?
Hugely underrated. We took a giant step doing this, and I think it's holding others back.
Tony?
Underrated. These trucks right now that are coming out are beginning to hit the market. They got a huge price tag, and to get people to embrace this clean technology, you got to have some type of incentive early on. Now, as they start gaining sales, then you can drop the incentive. But to get the ball rolling, you're going to need these incentives.
Yeah, and I know I've spoken with you and Vic about the fact that you have a pretty small margin in the trucking industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine. I'm not surprised by hearing the underrated response from you. Okay, overrated or underrated, Alex? Achievements and greening the supply chain.
I think that's underrated as well. I think it's really important to have a sober approach and count all the things that are causing trouble, but I think that the achievements need to be lauded as well.
Yeah, it's underrated. We're working with some major customers now where they want their entire supply chain green, and we're working with them to make sure that we are able to help them with their plan.
Okay. How about this one? Discretionary cargo at the ports, overrated or underrated?
I think that's underrated as well. I think there's opportunity to do it the right way and have even more of the right jobs in Southern California that can be done efficiently.
Yeah, I say underrated only because we have one of the best infrastructures in the nation. So if we utilize,
so it should be coming here.
If we utilize that to its full potential, we'll be fine.
Okay. Overrated or underrated? This is the last one. The commitment of beneficial cargo owners to reduce supply chain and environmental impacts.
I think it's underrated. I think partnership, things like turn times with trucks, safety, all of these things I think are important to focus on and beneficial.
Yeah, I say it's underrated. In 2003, I was working on my master's, and our thesis was measuring queue lines down at the port. And I remember we went down there, the team, it was about 4 or 5 of us, and we went down there at 6 in the morning. The trucks were outside in queue, and you could taste the diesel in your mouth. You go down there now, you don't have that issue.
And you think it's the BCOs that are pushing that?
This the trucking community along with the regulators, but the BCOs now are joining the fight.
All right. Okay. Everyone, all the participants here, please take a look at your computer. I'm going to launch a poll. And please answer these questions, whether you think it's overrated or underrated. I was a little surprised at the responses, but are you guys seeing this? Can you answer these? Okay. We'll give you a while, and we'll keep talking while you answer these questions. So why don't we ask you, Alex and Tony, what's the most important thing that needs to happen next to green our supply chain? What do we have to do next?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think we were getting into a little bit was incentive funding and other options like that. I think some of the things out there, automation, electrification of equipment is extraordinarily expensive. The ROI is pretty long. And, if there were other groups, community groups, others who benefit from these things being implemented, it could push that ROI to be much sooner. So whether it's incentives, I'll let others who are experts in how that would work. But it is absolutely holding some people back. Is just the barrier to entry, the cost to do things that we know are the right thing, the things that are going to improve communities, improve the air, improve the whole air basin. A lot of it is a huge amount, is cost amount. So, whether there's a way to improve that and make those things more available and prompt people in the right direction, I think it could benefit.
Tony, what about you? What do you think the most important next thing is?
You got to have more structured dialogue. I sit on a couple of committees where we're talking about, battery electric trucks. That's the answer to zero emission. But, you got to get the structure in place, because if you go out and do the battery electric trucks at a certain date, do you have the resources to reach that goal? I think it has to be set up in steps. And as you hit those steps, then you go to the next level. But I'm for structured dialogue with all the stakeholders involved. Okay,
great. Let's turn to some of the questions that have been asked in the chat. The first one, I think that came from Eric Neandros. What are your thoughts about CARB's pending? This is probably for you, Tony. What are your thoughts about CARB's pending rule that will require only a zero emission trucks for entering the drayage truck registry on January 1st, 2023? Are there risks here, or is the technology, infrastructure, and funding all going to align in time to make this happen with no risk?
No, we're not going to hit that goal of January 1, 2023. Technology for drayage, I can only speak for drayage, is not there. I already mentioned about the duty cycles. We're only getting 7 hours, and that's, everything working perfect. So it's not going to hit those goals. I don't see it.
Okay. How about, another question for Trapac. Is Trapac able to use green electricity to power those vessels in port? I think your electricity comes from DWP, right?
It does. So we don't have a choice. We can push for improvements to their sources. And, we have been investigating solar. We've got some opportunities, on property and off property. And that would be an ideal solution, is having a lot of that come from solar.
And then the next one has to do with Hyperloop. Any thoughts on Hyperloop viability and how that could transform the goods movement system?
It sounds like it would be a good idea. I mean, but even rail is awfully efficient. I think a concerted focus on infrastructure, all the way up and down the coast, would be worthwhile. Whether it's Hyperloop, whether it's lanes, whether it's lanes for electric over the road. I think infrastructure would do it.
Okay, I know Lupe Valdez from BNSF's on this, so I'm assuming she didn't pay you to say that.
No.
Thank you for joining us, Lupe. Okay, do you have? Let's see, I haven't read this one. I'm just going to kind of. Do you have charging stations and/or hydrogen fuel on site? Oh, TTSI. I know that answer. And we have trouble. We have trouble with EV forklifts not being able to operate for long periods too, especially when it is hot. So. Have you run into those kind of problems? Tell them about, what you do with how you get your hydrogen and your the electrical charging that you do have on site.
Yeah, we are on site down in San Pedro, so we have 2 megawatts of power at our disposal. So we have no issues with charging our trucks. Also, on our site, we have a hydrogen station, which is a mobile fueler from Air Products, and we have that for the last 2 years. And
they basically they pull in a tanker full of hydrogen, they park it, hook it up, you come in and fill up your trucks.
Correct. We have 300 kilograms on site with a capacity of adding another 200.
Yeah, it's good to have the room to do. Not everyone has the room to do that, but you do.
Yes.
That's helpful. I'm going to end the poll here and show you the results. Share results. Let's see. So mostly agreement with you guys in terms of everything being underrated. I think down here number 4, a little more split, that discretionary cargo issue. But by and large, a lot of agreement with where you guys came out on overrated and underrated. How are we doing on time? We've got a couple minutes here. Let's see. What about where are the diesel trucks going was the question. Are they operating and polluting somewhere else? And I've talked to you guys about this before, so I have an idea. Or are we dismantling, converting them to take them out totally? I think, Tony, you guys are actually sending them to places where you have dirtier trucks, so they're cleaning up your fleets in other places, right?
Correct. Our diesel trucks are 2017, so they're the ultra clean diesels. And we're taking those trucks up to our other locations of the Pacific Northwest, Virginia, and retiring those old dirty trucks out there. The goal eventually is to replace all the diesel trucks in our in other facilities with CNG, and eventually get to zero emissions.
Yeah, great. So you have a plan to sort of turn this over in stages and get all the way there throughout
Right.
your entire business throughout the United States. Okay, so this last question I have from the audience, what is being done to automate the loading and unloading of containers? I've seen videos of other ports around the world which are highly automated, robotic. Warehouses are also doing the same thing. I know it may reduce the labor force, but it would be greater it would make for greater throughput and reduce pollution, at least in less ships sitting and waiting, etc. So what's going on with the issue of automation? We know it's a highly controversial issue, and that the longshore workers are very much opposed to it. I know there's provisions in their contract that allow for it. That's how I assume that Trapac was able to do it. But what do you think about that? How much automated loading and unloading of containers is going on, and how much is going to go on?
Oh, I can share, some of the benefits that we obtain by going through automation. And you can imagine how much more equipment is electrified. The cranes are gigantic devices. They're lifting extraordinarily heavy loads. When it's electrified, every time the container is lowering, it actually regenerates electricity. So it's got kind of a hybrid action there where it's got a regen cycle. So everything that can be, for those who may not know the industry too well, there's an element called a rubber tired gantry. And these are giant devices that drive around a conventional property, have a giant diesel engine that is just sitting at high RPM, functioning 24 hours a day, raising and lowering, and it's not regenerating any electricity when it lowers the containers. Normally terminals may have 10, 12, 30, 40 of those things running at any one time. That can be completely eliminated with automation and electrification. So giant engines that are sitting there just booming all day, loud, spitting out diesel and diesel particulates. And then we've got the UTRs, the utility tractor rigs. Those are normally in a loop around the vessel and around the stacks on a terminal. And those things, they're not idling, they're actually in use. And so when you've got a conventional terminal, those things are running the whole time in use, doing a ton of work. The automation was able to really tamp down on those emissions. So we've got the equivalent of dozens and dozens of diesel engines being powered under load, and we've converted that into electricity that not only is using electricity from a non-point source locally, but it's regenerating every time it lowers the load. So we've seen a giant improvement to our emissions that comes directly from the automation. We'd like to do more automation, and it really aligns with sustainability goals, and I think community. So we're very hopeful. And we have a fantastic workforce. We have a lot of people working for us. We have a lot of mechanics and a lot of other folks doing stuff. So we're very proud of what we've accomplished. And it's not like I don't know how it could be fathomed. That automation. We have lots of good workers doing all this stuff. And so anyway, I think it's a good balance, and it's more sustainable this way.
Thank you, Alex. Tony has dropped off my screen. Did we lose him? You still there, Tony?
Yeah, Joe, I think I noticed that too. I think we lost Tony.
Oh no, that's not good, but that's okay. We were getting just to the last wrap up anyway. Alex, if you had any closing thoughts before we turn it over to Bill Mcgovern to talk about some of Coalition for Clean Air's priorities, do you have any closing thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, well, thank you very much again for this opportunity. We've taken this as a core value. So, we took the stand, and it took years of planning to get electrification and to do all this stuff. We're not done yet. We're just getting started. I think we're very excited about where this is going to take us, and can't wait for more viable options as far as equipment and things go. And we'll continue to do it publicly. We'll continue to have sustainability reports. We'll continue to post things to our website, and try to be a good corporate citizen.
Thank you, Alex. Tony, I know we lost you for a second, but you're back. Just any closing thoughts before we turn it over to Bill Mcgovern?
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to share our experiences and knowledge with the alternative fuel trucks. We believe that it's heading in the right direction. The technology is improving, and we look forward in the future of being a zero emission company.
Thank you. And thank you to both of our panelists. I really, it was educational for me. I thought I knew everything, but I didn't. Thanks for that. I really appreciate it. And so Bill, without further ado, let me turn it over to you, our policy director, Bill Mcgovern.
Thanks, Joe. In California, about 80% of our air pollution comes from transportation. And so most of our work is directed at reducing those emissions from transportation. And by the way, when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions, about 50% come from transportation when you include the upstream emissions from the fuel production. And we also know that those emissions from transportation are not evenly distributed. They are disproportionately impacting low-income communities of color that are most often downwind from freight hubs like ports and rail yards and warehouses and freeways. So we're particularly focusing on trying to relieve the burden of illness that's inflicted on those communities by toxic diesel exhaust. Fortunately, Governor Newsom has gotten out ahead on clean transportation with a couple executive orders, one in September of 2019, which ordered the state to bring transportation spending in line with the need to reduce the emissions that are changing the climate and polluting the air. And then another one in September of last year, which said that by 2045, all of our fleets of on-road heavy-duty engines and off-road engines will be converted to zero emission where feasible, and that by 2035, all drayage trucks will be zero emission and all new sales of cars will be zero emission. What a lot of people don't realize is an executive order doesn't actually make something happen, but it gives the orders. And in this case, the agencies are in charge of making it happen. So when it comes to engines and fuels, that means the California Air Resources Board is in charge of regulating those. And the board has a busy agenda that we're working on, rulemakings coming up. And we've been talking today, of course, about freight transportation. The number of the rules coming up would take us to zero emissions in transport refrigeration units, to cleaner commercial harbor craft, to an inspection and maintenance rule for heavy duty trucks. That's the truck smog check that we talked about in the video. Advanced clean fleets, getting our trucking fleets to zero emissions. And next year, reducing emissions from locomotives. In light duty vehicles, the board has an item coming up to affect the ride hailing fleets, the Clean Miles Standard, which would be the first rule in the country to set emission reduction targets for those ride hailing fleets. And then next year, we look forward to a ramped up advanced clean cars rule that will take us to that goal of by 2035, all the new sales will be zero emissions. And finally, there's a sector called small off-road engines, lawnmowers, leaf blowers, that kind of thing. Actually, their smog forming emissions are greater than those of all the cars on the road in California. So we also need to convert new sales of that equipment to zero emissions. There's an important role for the legislature too. We talked earlier about incentive funding. Well, we need the legislature to pass that funding to make it available. And Governor Newsom has a proposal for $1.5 billion of zero emission vehicle funding in the budget. That needs a lot of support in the legislature. So if there's one action that I would urge you to take, it's contact your legislator and urge him or her to support the governor's ZEV budget proposal. And finally, I mentioned the governor's executive order on transportation infrastructure. That is now being implemented by the California State Transportation Agency through something they call the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure. And it very much has a ZEV component. In fact, of the 10 guiding principles, one of them is including investments in light, medium, and heavy duty zero emission vehicle infrastructure. And another one is developing a zero emission freight transportation system. And they are currently taking comments on that plan. So there are opportunities to weigh in support of that really historic shift of transportation funding that needs to be spent to clean up our transportation system. Thanks. And with that, I'm turning it over to Brian.
Thank you, Bill. This is a great conversation. Hi, everybody. Brian Sheridan, I'm the development director at the Coalition for Clean Air. And I don't know about all of you, but I really thought this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you, Trapac, for supporting this. You know, it's our 50th anniversary, and it's hard to believe that that we were formed 50 years ago, but we were. And we like to say we hope to be out of business someday, because we hope that we've solved the problem. But we know that the reality is that we've got a long way to go. So, if you haven't contributed, please do consider contributing. I have to also just kind of recognize some of the folks that are on this Zoom. I know Isabel from A Blue Sky Foundation, who supports our work, is on here. I know Cruz is on here. I know Booster Fuels is on here. We are beneficiaries of a couple of CARB grants. I know Mark Abramovich is personally. So I just have to thank everybody for really making our work possible. Donations to the Coalition for Clean Air, and I think Karen put it in the chat, are fully tax deductible. So really and truly, thank you guys for your support. And please, I am going to also put a couple of upcoming events in the chat that I hope you guys can join us for. Many of you participated in the last California Clean Air Day. We are going to be making an announcement about some changes to that program, and it'll be October 6th this year. I know Laura, who is very active on the chat. You know, SMUD was our #1 sort of per capita utility in terms of engagement. So good job there. And I hope that everybody participates on that. And if you didn't see it, Mark is offering to match anyone who would like to contribute up to $500 right now. So thanks you guys for participating. The other upcoming events are our California Air Quality Awards and another webinar this time where we're going to get into more of the material and building side of what it takes to get to improved air quality and to prevent climate change. So please be on the lookout for that.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it. And Mark, please keep June 17th as a tentative date for the California Air Quality Awards this year, because it's our 50th anniversary. We'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary and the people who made Coalition for Clean Air what it is, and you're one of them. So governing board member Cacciati, you know, Bill didn't put a big target on you and AQMD, but we are prioritizing that work too, of course. I hope everything's going well with you. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everybody for being part of this webinar. It's very it's so refreshing to see such a level of interest in what we're trying to do here. And you know, obviously, when it comes to air quality and climate protection here in California, the supply chain is a key issue, and we focus a lot of our work on it. We prioritize it. I see some of our colleagues are on here. Carlo De La Cruz from Sierra Club is here, and I know Lupe, I put you down as BNSF, but you're Union Pacific, right? So I'm sorry about that, Lupe. But we see so many friends here, and we really truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. We're going to give you a couple of extra. I think, Karen, unless I'm wrong, we have been able to get through everything, right?
Yes.
Let's thumbs up to Karen, who makes this happen through all her hard work and planning and organizing these events. Karen Volp-Gardella, who's just a fantastic event manager for us. So thank you, Karen, for everything. Thank you for all of you again, and our Alex and Tony for your insights and knowledge, and we're just absolutely invaluable. Really, truly appreciate it. Bill, thanks for summing up what we're doing. And again, we hope you enjoy the day, and every breath you take is a breath of clean air.